All right, we got our Christmas ham here. So fresh. Fresh bone-in ham. So here's our fresh bone-in ham that we got from the restaurant supply store. This is going to become our Christmas ham. But before it becomes a Christmas ham, we need to salt it. And we're going to salt it by soaking it in 12% brine for about 2 weeks. You could go for 3 weeks even. But at the end, we're just going to soak it in fresh water for a couple of days towards the very end, just to get rid of that excess saltiness on the outside of the ham. To make our 12% brine, we have here our pot. We have some salt. So it's going to be a lot easier to measure our 12% if we use the metric system. So basically, we're going to put in 120 grams of salt per liter of water. My pot over here takes 8 quarts, which is about 8 liters. So in order to make 8 liters of brine and 120 grams per liter, that means that we have 960 grams of salt that we need to dissolve. There we go, 960 grams of salt. Of course, since we need 8 liters of water, I'm also going to weigh it. So I'm going to be more exact than just volume measuring it. So we're not really going to put the entire 8 liters of water in here right away, just because we don't need to heat up the entire amount, because we need to cool down the brine anyway before we can use it. So we'll just use enough water to really dissolve the salt and then add cold water at the end to bring the temperature of the brine down. Here's 500 grams. Another 500 grams. So because this is a Scandinavian Christmas ham, we are not going to add pink salt or nitrites into the mixture at all. It is just going to be salt cured. So that also means when the ham is done, when it's baked, the meat is going to be gray, not red. So that's why also sometimes you hear the term gray salted ham being used for the Christmas ham. So now my water is just coming to a boil, and pretty much all the salt has dissolved in there. So I'm going to dump the other 2 liters. Just make sure everything gets dissolved. Now I can turn off my heat, and I'm going to measure 4 more liters of water, or 4,000 grams. So now we have 8 liters of brine. This needs to cool down and pretty much completely before we'll use it. So I'm gonna pop it in the fridge for a little while just to get it cooled down. The outside would work too if it's cold enough outside. You kind of want to get it to about fridge temperature. Now our salt brine has sufficiently cooled down. Of course, I could have also used ice water to make it cool very quickly, but I didn't have any ice, so I just put it in the fridge for a little while. So let's prep the ham, and let's put it inside this 5-gallon bucket that I have. The process is going to be very simple. So I'm just going to use immersion brining for the ham. You could use something like this too to inject the ham with the salt brine. It would take a lot less, maybe about a few days to brine it. So this is a 25-pound ham. So if I were to use an injection method instead, I would use maybe 150 grams of salt per 100 mils of water, and then just inject that all over the ham, and then let it sit for maybe about 3 days before actually cooking it. So now, since I'm using the immersion method, let's take the ham out of this bag. I like this method of cooking ham because ham like this is not very expensive. I think I paid about $40 for this size of ham. This is gonna feed a lot of people or a lot of meals. And I have here a clean bucket. So let's just take this ham and let's just see if we can fit this ham in here. It should fit in just about. Yes, perfect fit every time. And now all we have to do is really cover the ham with our salt brine. Let me just wipe off some of this excess. Here we go. And now we will pour in our brine. There we go. That was exactly the right amount of brine. My ham is completely submerged and it's actually wedged in there kinda so it doesn't float up the top. It could happen that your ham starts to float on the top just because there's so much salt in here. If that happens, weigh it down, or alternatively just make sure that there's no headspace in the pail at all, that your brine is all the way to the top. If you find that you're a little short on the brine, avoid using plain tap water because then you're going to dilute the salt brine. If you must add a lot of water, just make a new batch of brine. Just add a little bit. I mean, a little bit of water is okay. A few mils, maybe about a cup or so won't make much difference, but more than that and you're going to start risk of diluting your brine. So what I'm going to do is actually I'm going to put this on the floor and put my knee on this to really snap it in. All right. Now the ham is ready to go in the fridge, in a cold room, or maybe even outside if it's cool enough where you live, for about 2 to 3 weeks. And I will see you then.